Panzer Ace is a term used to describe highly decorated German tank commanders. These commanders were credited with the destruction of large numbers of tanks and other armored fighting vehicles. This can be attributed to the skills they gained through many years of combat. Most of the successful German tank commanders served in units equipped with Tiger tanks between the middle of 1943 to middle of 1944. The confidence which the crews of Tigers and the operators of other relatively advanced weapons had in the capabilities of their equipment may have reinforced their ideological conditioning and encouraged them to take higher risk in combat. But numbers of success by highly decorated soldiers should be approached with caution, as it is rarely possible to determine reliably in the heat of the battle how many tanks were destroyed and by whom. The German intelligence service on the Eastern Front routinely reduced the reported number of Soviet tanks being destroyed by 30% in their own statistics to make up for double counting and repairable vehicles. But in the summer of 1943, German combat units claimed 16,250 tanks and assault guns destroyed. This number is really astonishing, even by a 30% reduction. And now let's see the top Panzer aces. Number 10, Ernst Bachmann. Bachmann fought and rose to fame during World War II for his actions in command of Panther tanks. In May 1940, Bachmann took part in the invasion of France. Later he served with his division during Operation Barbarossa before being seriously wounded in July of 1941. In the winter of 1942 he was posted to the SS Division Das Reich on the Eastern Front, with which he took part in the Third Battle of Kharkov. In February of 1944, Das Reich was ordered to France to form an armored reserve for the expected Allied invasion. Following Operation Overlord, the division reached the front in early July and fought against the American forces near Saint-Lô. Bachmann participated in the Ardennes offensive in December of 1944 and the fighting on the Eastern Front in the spring of 1945. Following the war, he settled in Kiesdorf, Germany, where he was the long-time fire chief and also served as the town's mayor. Number 9, Balthazar Wall. He reported in August of 1941 as a volunteer for the Waffen-SS. He was posted as a machine gunner. Later he retrained as a tank gunner and at the end of 1942 posted to the 13th Heavy Tank Company of the 1st SS Panzer Regiment, where he met with his tank commander Michael Wittmann. By the time of Operation Citadel, they were one of the best tank crews in the entire division. He was ordered the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross in January of 1944, the first and only tank gunner to receive this award. When Wittmann was killed in Normandy in 1944, Wall was severely wounded and in a field hospital, but survived the war. Number 8, Karl Kerner. He started the war in the 4th Company of the SS Regiment Germania in Hamburg. By the end of 1943, he was transferred to the 103rd Heavy SS Panzer Battalion, which was in training, and finally the battalion was sent to the Eastern Front in January of 1945. In April of 1945, Kerner was a platoon commander in the 2nd Company 503rd SS Heavy Panzer Battalion. In the following days, the battalion was forced back into defense of Berlin. In the withdrawal, Kerner destroyed 102 Russian tanks and 26 anti-tank guns, for which he was awarded the Knight's Cross in April of 1945. After the award ceremony, he returned to what was left of his battalion. Number 7, Paul Aguer. Aguer started World War II as a pilot and took part in the Polish campaign. Altogether, he flew 112 missions and was shot down 3 times. He did record some victories but was not a fighter ace. In May of 1941, he volunteered to join the Waffen-SS and was trained as an anti-tank gunner. Aguer started to show his skills as a tank commander in the Battle of Kiev when he destroyed 28 tanks and 14 anti-tank guns. During the Third Battle of Kharkov in February of 1943, he recorded his 65th tank destroyed, but his company was almost wiped out, and by the end of the battle he had only 2 tanks left. In October of 1943, Aguer was transferred to command a Tiger tank platoon in the 102nd SS Heavy Panzer Battalion. The battalion was sent to Normandy after the D-Day landings. He destroyed a further 14 tanks and 4 anti-tank guns. Aguer's battalion was almost completely destroyed during the fighting in Normandy, and in September of 1944 he was pulled back to Germany and reformed. By May 1945, Aguer recorded 113 tanks destroyed. In the civilian life after the war, he became a sports reporter and died in 2007. Number 6. Hans Zandrock. In September 1939, Zandrock served with the 1st Company, Panzer Regiment 5 during the Polish campaign. During the Battle of France, Panzer Regiment 5 distinguished itself, attacking through Belgium and participating in the pursuit during the evacuation of Dunkirk. Zandrock was sent to North Africa as a part of the Afrika Corps. Then he fought in Italy and later in East Prussia. Zandrock's personal score of enemy tanks and armored vehicles destroyed reached 123. Wounded in action during April of 1945, Zandrock was hospitalized, and although the bulk of his units were cut off and captured by Soviet forces, Zandrock made his way west, surrendering the US forces. Number 5. Walter Knipp. Knipp volunteered to join the SS at the beginning of the war. In 1942, he took over command of the 2nd SS Sturmgeschütz Battalion, so assault gun battalion, and was noted for being the most notable Waffen-SS Stück commander. From July of 1943 to January of 1944, his unit claimed the destruction of some 129 Russian tanks, while losing only 2 assault guns. Walter Knipp was killed in an accident in April of 1944 in France. Number 4. Michael Wittmann, a German Waffen-SS tank commander during the Second World War. He was credited with the destruction of 138 tanks and 132 anti-tank guns, along with an unknown number of other armored vehicles, making him one of Germany's top-scoring panzer aces. Wittmann is most famous for his ambush of elements of the British 7th Armored Division during the Battle of Villers-Bocage on the 13th of June 1944. While in command of a single Tiger tank, he destroyed up to 14 tanks and 15 personal carriers along with 2 anti-tank guns within a space of 15 minutes. The circumstances behind Wittmann's death have caused some debate and discussion over the years, but it had been accepted that the gunner in a Sherman Firefly tank fired the round that destroyed Wittmann's tank and killed the crew. Number 3. Johannes Belter. He was a German tank commander and destroyed 139 tanks. Some sources place his score as high as 144 during the war. Next to Knispel and Carius, he is considered to have been one of the most successful tank commanders in history. Number 2. Otto Carius. He credited with destroying of more than 150 enemy tanks. Carius had been drafted twice before, but sent home as not fit for service, at present underweight. But finally, in May of 1940, Carius was drafted. Following training, he volunteered for the Panzer Corps. Carius learned the fundamentals of tank warfare as a member of the 7th Panzer Replacement Battalion. His unit was integrated into the newly formed 21st Panzer Regiment, and in June of 1941 he was sent to East Prussia. He experienced his first battle as a loader of a Panzer 38T during Operation Barbarossa. It was during this operation that Carius suffered wounds from a round. He subsequently became a commander of a Jagdtiger company of the 512th Heavy Anti-Tank Battalion at the beginning of 1945. The second company was directed to the front line late in March. He took part in the defenses of the River Rhine and eventually surrendered to the US Army on the 15th of April 1945. After the war, he started a pharmacy shop called Tiger Apotheke, so Tiger Pharmacy. And the number 1, Kurt Knispel, a loader, gunner, and later commander, and the highest scoring tank ace of World War II, with a total of 168 confirmed tank kills. The actual number, although unconfirmed, may be as high as 195. Knispel was by far the most successful tanker of the Second World War, and even credited with knocking out a T-34 tank at 3,000 meters. He fought in virtually every type of German tank as loader, gunner, and commander. As commander of a Tiger I and then a Tiger II tank, Knispel destroyed another 42 enemy tanks. Though he was recommended for it 4 times, Knispel never received the Knight's Cross, a standard award for most others in World War II. Unlike some other commanders, Knispel was not consumed by the pursuit of decorations. When there were conflicting claims for a destroyed enemy tank, Knispel always stepped back, always willing to credit success to someone else. Knispel's slow promotion is attributed to the several conflicts with higher Nazi authorities and general lack of military bearing, sporting a goatee and hair longer than regulations. Only his impressive track record saved him from ending up in a military prison.